Hello everyone, it's Friday video time as we welcome John back onto the channel. John, no shortage of talking points, let's just say. It's been a busy few days, yeah?
Busy few days, a lot of stuff out there, a lot of stuff being said, a lot of stuff in the works apparently, good and bad, shall we say. So I'm sure there's plenty to get stuck into today.
Yeah. Let's start with the Kyogo stuff then. Should point out that I don't think there's any real update from where we were yesterday. It's kind of gone a bit quiet on that front. But certainly still an interesting talking point. I spent the majority of the video yesterday talking about it. I think virtually every comment we got in was centred around Kyogo. People want to talk about it. I'll bring up some comments later. But first of all, what have you made of this whole situation?
Yeah, it's one of those ones that initially just grabs so much attention because it kind of comes from nowhere. Man City are obviously a big high-profile club in England. Kyogo's like a really high-profile player in Scotland and at Celtic. So those two things meet, and it's like oil and fire, and it just kind of explodes for a little bit. I think if you actually look at what was being said, what was being reported, the suggestion is that City are looking at a number of players, for that kind of wide attacking position, someone maybe who can play wide and central, which Kyogo certainly can, based on his previous clubs as well. There's the kind of Vissel-Kobe connection with the coach at Man City, so that I think the interest is genuine, but I'm not quite, I don't quite have. I wouldn't be phoning a taxi for Kyogo, put it that way. I don't think it's imminent that he's going to be leaving, but I think that interest seems genuine. I think the Matt O'Reilly stuff's much further along than the Kyogo stuff, for example. So a lot of people are assuming that Kyogo's away and that he's gone and that's it, it's a disaster. But I think there's a fair way to go for us to be totally worried about Kyogo going. I think there's a lot of factors here. Namely, as well, Hamish, just to say, Celtic's reported valuation of him being pretty high, 20 million or above, which for a 29-year-old's nothing to sniff at. So there's a lot of things at play there. I'm not doom and gloom about it, while recognising that, clubs will be interested in Kyogo because he's a smashing player, as well know.
Yeah, I think there's a balance to be found here, as with most things, and it's sometimes difficult to find that balance because when you hear of potentially our two best players leaving the club, it's very easy to get a bit carried away and forecast a season of doom ahead. I think the reality is that, O'Reilly's going to be leaving. I still think Kyogo will stay personally. I'm probably a little bit more worried than you based off what you've just said. I think that there really is something to this, and I think our resolve might be tested. I think the issue here might be that Man City don't want to go to our valuation, which is a crazy thing to say, but the talk is that City want someone cheap, and I know before people jump in, 20 million is probably still cheap for Man City, but I think they want someone probably a little bit cheaper than that. So we'll have to wait and see. What do we do if Man City come in with £20 million? Are you of the belief that every player has his price, or do you get to a point a few days from the end of the window, already losing probably our best player, our best player, where you say no one else can leave?
I mean, I think it would be pretty absurd to sell O'Reilly and Kyogo in the same window, personally. I think that's the kind of thing that just sets in negativity that doesn't need to be set in and leaves us, hoping that a signing is going to come, a new guy's going to come good, or something is going to happen, or it's just too much for me. I'm not totally against Celtic selling players. I'm not one of those guys who's like, we should keep Matt O'Reilly for a testimonial in 10 years. I recognise that players do leave the club, but I think losing arguably, or not even arguably, but your two best players and your two most effective players in the final third, I think losing them both in one window without sourcing a replacement in advance and kind of scrabbling around in the last week of the window, I don't think that's a good way to do business. I think you can say, it's great business taking in a big fee for O'Reilly and taking in a big fee for Kyogo. Kyogo's 29. You're looking at it purely pragmatically. I can understand that aspect of it, but you can't just disrupt the team so much in the last week of the window without other players coming in. Or having players in advance that you would bring in just immediately, I think would be scrambling around for a forward. I think it would be a mistake to sell Kyogo, especially hot on the heels of O'Reilly leaving as well. So it's a no for me, Hamish. Usually I
So
can
no at any price, just not for sale. I know it's a weird thing to say because if you get an offer of 40 million, you do sell him then. But are you generally just we can't afford to sell Kyogo?
I think it would need to be market value plus a fair bit more. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the way I see it. Just because of the situation Celtic are in. I know we've got Ida, but we've just brought him in to kind of replenish what we had last season. It's just a no for me. Like I try to see these things as balanced as possible, but I just wouldn't be selling him at this stage of the window because we don't have anyone lined up. So what would be the point in that?
It's such a complex issue, and like we should just clarify and reaffirm the fact that there's not been a bid made at all. It's speculation at this stage. It's speculation, but we speak about speculation. What would happen if you blocked Kyogo making his dream move to perhaps the best team in the world before you even get to the financial aspect? I know Celtic look out for themselves, but is that a point you would potentially look down the road? See, it's very complex.
I'm not as sentimental as that. What's this dream move part? Like, if he wanted this dream move to City, maybe, players have power in these situations. So, like, if he wanted the dream move, then that's something that he would have maybe worked on after his first season at Celtic or his second season at Celtic. There's routes to bigger leagues and bigger clubs, more cash-rich clubs anyway, down the line that players can pursue. And Kyogo's not pursued that, so it's not as if he's been chomping at the bit to leave, and that we're standing in his way, big bad Celtic. I just don't see it like that, to be frank with you. I think Celtic should pretty much say, Man City, if you want him, you need to pay big money because we can't let him leave in the same window as our other star player. I think it would be really detrimental to Celtic's season in the Champions League and in the Premiership.
Yeah, it's a concerning thought. I'm just really hoping City end up going for someone else. Losing O'Reilly would be bad enough. Let's just hope that this all peters out. Right, a few comments summing up various different feelings. Ross Murphy, I'd be completely fine with Kyogo and O'Reilly leaving if the club was run the way it's meant to be. But last summer we replaced our best player, Jota, he's talking about, with Palma, Yang and Tilio. Just generally, do we have more faith? I'm feeling myself being daft asking this question, but do we have more faith in Celtic now than a year ago? Are we potentially have there been signs that we're targeting a higher class of player, higher valuation of player compared to last year when it was all kind of projects we were looking at?
I think there's tentative signs of that, but there's been no actual proof of it other than getting Adamaida over the line because...
And we knew about him already.
Yeah, but it's fine well all these players getting linked with us, but Celtic actually haven't done any business on it yet, so can they conclude deals at that level consistently? Realistically, if you're looking to sell Kyogo, and Kyogo's 29, if Celtic are thinking of selling Kyogo, then that's something that should have been planned since February or January. Plan ahead, thinking, Kyogo's could be at his maximum value this summer, clubs might be in for him, let's ensure there's like a replacement down the line, maybe coming early, and then, Kyogo might leave. It just hasn't worked out like that though, so yeah, I don't really have much more faith than what we got last year. I think Rodgers has been a bit more assertive on the transfer front. I think you can see that publicly, and it seems that way behind the scenes as well. Certainly, whatever kind of battle happened behind the scenes last year was one that Mark Lawwell and his team lost out on and eventually left the club. And I think Rodgers came out on top in that kind of situation. But yeah, it's just too close to the end of the deadline, Hamish. It's just too close to let a lot of players leave of a high calibre without really knowing who we're going to get in response. That's just the way I see it.
Yeah, because you're looking at having to replace O'Reilly. You would say if Kyogo was to leave, you'd have to replace him, obviously, plus your left back, your centre back, your other midfielder that Rodgers wants, your winger, potentially a third striker as well. That's my issue, that we've kind of taken so long doing the business we've done so far that we now have so much to do. I think we'd probably feel a little bit calmer if we already had a left back and centre back in, and it was maybe just O'Reilly we had to replace. But it just seems now like once again we're going to be panicking at the end of the window.
Yeah, I just don't think positioned ourselves to have the luxury to sell our two best players in the final week of the window and still be sourcing upgrades in 3 other positions. It's just, it would be chaos for me.
Tim Billy, can we just shoot this one down? I'm going to use you, Tim Billy, great name, as an example here. The problem is we might end up with Shankland as a replacement. That would be totally unacceptable. It's not happening. Brendan Rodgers won't want to sign Lawrence Shankland. He's not a Celtic player. He doesn't suit our style. I would argue he's not good enough to be a first choice Celtic player. Ida is far better than Shankland, for example.
I think if Celtic wanted to sign Shankland, it would have happened already, and it's just not. So It's not going to happen now.
Right, BS Bobby Shaw. We took Larsson, Sutton, Petrov, Varga and a few more out of the team once upon a time and replaced them with what folk were convinced were duds. We then advanced to the Champions League to the latter stages twice in a row and won 3 on the trot during this. It would be garbage to lose 2 or 3 key players before the transfer window shuts, but we have been here before. I guess that's the point. Like if we lose O'Reilly, for example, like Celtic are going to be fine. We've lost better players than Matt O'Reilly in the past, but equally, it's not a given that we're able to replace these guys. I guess based off last summer, for example, when Jota left, wasn't replaced. Starfelt left, clearly wasn't replaced. Aaron Moy left. Has Aaron Moy even been replaced? You know what I mean?
And it's true of a lot of players, from the last few years. You're right, and I just don't. I would just be concerned. Yeah, I would just be concerned, just scrambling around for potential replacements. For me, Celtic, this should be a summer where Celtic are pushing on, even with the sale of Matt O'Reilly. This is a summer where Celtic should be pushing on to another height. Really tackling this 8-game group stage in the Champions League. And I think it'll be interesting later to see what Rodgers is saying in the media about all this, because he's got his press conference coming up. There'll be a lot of chat. And he's obviously going to be asked about Kyogo. And I think he'll give a pretty forthright answer on what his stance on that is. And I think he'll probably say something like he doesn't want Kyogo to leave. I think he'll be as honest as that. I think he'll say that he doesn't want him to go. But I think you'll tip a nod to the realities of big bids do lurk out there, and decisions have to be made, hard decisions. But I think if you ask Brendan Rodgers, he won't want to lose Kyogo. I don't think he'll want to lose Matt O'Reilly. So I think if you're asking a manager to lose 2 of his best players and you've not really backed him to the extent that he probably should have been this summer, then I think that leaves the manager in a very tricky position.
Will Rodgers utter the words "every player has his price" during today's press conference? What do you think?
I think there's a good chance of that. I think we've already said it 3 times, so I think there's a good chance Rodgers will too.
It's going to be interesting though, because in any other week O'Reilly would be the big story, wouldn't he? We've not heard from Rodgers on that, although we expect. I wouldn't expect to see O'Reilly play this weekend. Certainly not for Celtic.
Seems a bit advanced, doesn't it? I think I said on here last week that I was pretty convinced that he would go. I did have an off-camera little kind of doubt to myself, thinking, maybe he'll end up staying, especially after Atalanta kind of pulled out of it. But Brighton just came forward, and I think they're offering what Celtic are looking for. So that seems like it's rumbling along nicely from their perspective.
So we'll hear about O'Reilly, we'll hear about Kyogo. Those questions will certainly be asked. Mateusz Bogusz will be mentioned as well, I'm sure. I don't expect Brendan Rodgers to say anything about him. But the latest here, I think Daily Record saying that we are currently well short of LAFC's valuation. Bogusz notched a goal yesterday, you might have seen overnight, in his side's Leagues Cup semi-final win against Colorado Rapids. That obviously means they're into the final. Talk is that he won't be sold before Sunday's final, which, to be honest, is kind of fair enough. We certainly wouldn't be wanting to sell any of our big players before a final. They also, LAFC, have former Celtic scout Neil McGuinness on board there as their technical director, so I wonder if that's maybe a bit of the link there. What do you make of this stuff over Bogusz?
Yeah, I quite like the profiles of the players we're actually being linked with, including this guy. Obviously he spent time at Leeds, he's had some time, in Spain, I think, in the second tier. And he's done really well in MLS. And I think, if it's not Celtic, then I think a few European teams will probably be interested in bringing him back over here. MLS is an interesting market right now. There's obviously, there's a lot of players of good value, but there's there's a lot of players that are kind of ready for the next step as well. It's kind of that kind of league. I mean, we look at Auston Trusty. I think he turned out to be a bit of a diamond for us. So I think it is a market that Celtic look at, and this guy's a goal scoring attacking midfielder, and is someone who looks more than capable of scoring regularly and creating at Scottish Premiership level. And then obviously you have the hope of can they transfer that to European stuff as well, but you never really know that until they're in the door. So I think I'm pleased with the players we're being linked with, like in response to the Riley thing, just to counter what we were talking about before. As I said, there's tentative signs that we're ready to do business for good players, after losing good players. So I do like the look of this guy, and I know if it's not him, hopefully it's another player like of a similar profile who looks ready for that kind of big European move. And a move to Celtic should be a big European move for a lot of players, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've said before, I like the look of him. His stats are really impressive. He seems like someone who, up until this season, hadn't really done anything in his career. But sometimes that kind of explosion that people have is a good thing, because it almost it just sees their career fly forward. And we might be striking at the right time. And I like the fact that he's in form at the moment as well. Like you literally were linked with him, and then a few hours later you're seeing the MLS tweeting him scoring a goal from outside the box. So I just really hope this one doesn't drag on. Certainly not after Sunday, after his final. I don't think it'll be ridiculous money we're looking at, so hopefully we can just get this deal done and hopefully replace O'Reilly.
The good thing about the end of the transfer window, Hamish, is nothing can rumble on for too long. So, like, good or bad, we'll find out, quite quickly who's going to be coming and who's not going to be.
Anthony Joseph from Sky Sports saying we're interested in Sheffield United defender Auston Trusty, 26-year-old. He joined them from Arsenal for £5 million last summer. He's a USA international, so he's an international teammate of Cameron Carter-Vickers, and he can play centre-back and left-back. Centre-back and left-back, John. You know what I'm going to say? Two birds, one stone, all of those things. Why sign a left-back and a centre-back if you can just sign the one player who can do both, eh?
Yeah, you would hope he is a centre-back specialist, a left centre-back specialist, rather than the dreaded utility player. But, again, it's another decent profile of a player that we're looking at to help out Carter-Vickers, because I think Carter-Vickers needs, I think he needs a new, strong partnership in the heart of that Celtic defence. Something that he had ideally at a level above what we had with him and Starfelt, but, back to that kind of functional unit where it's Carter-Vickers and him and everyone's happy with it.
Yeah. Because I'm getting quite concerned about the centre-back situation. I can't remember where I was at with that when we last had you on, but I'm getting very concerned about the centre-back stuff. I've got the fear that we're going to go into this season really only with Carter-Vickers and Liam Scales as players we can trust, because I don't... Personally, I like him, but I don't trust Stephen Welsh particularly. I don't trust Lagerbielke, although he's going to leave. I don't trust Naropski with his injuries and that. We need to sign a centre-back, and I'm kind of concerned we might not.
Do you not think the signs of, like, the move, the wheels turning on Kobayashi and Lagerbielke leaving indicates that we will sign someone, though? Do you know what I mean?
Well, ideally, but we sold... didn't we, and waited ages to sign another forward. I hope you're right.
Yeah. It just seems to me that sometimes you get an indication of Celtic kind of pushing out the fringes to kind of make way for a new guy coming in.
Okay.
And just get this... I get the sense, just the sense, a hunch that we could be looking to do business. Well, obviously are looking to do business there, but it just feels like the club are ready to pull the trigger on that position specifically.
Yeah. Let's try and do the impossible and work out what we're going to do then in the final 7 days, certainly in terms of income. And so centre back, do you reckon we're looking at, is Trusty the guy, do you think?
I think who else have been like, was it Danulic is the other guy we were kind of like
Danulic, we had Chris Mepham who went really quiet. The chat is, I think Daryl Shea's going to, is it Wolves or someone like that?
I don't think that's going to happen. Or Brentford as well, I think we're in for him. I think Darragh O'Shea's just like the archetypical Brendan Rodgers wish list type thing of, a big Irish guy who plays in England. It just sits Rodgers down to the ground. I don't think that one was going to happen, but yeah, whether it's Auston Trusty or whoever, I do think we will sign a defender. So, I'm hoping to say that that comes off. I would suggest that's going to happen.
Okay, left back. Who are we looking at? Is Owen Beck the player that won't go away? We've also had the fella, is it Wijndal from Ajax? I'm trying to think if there's been anyone else recently there.
There was some online chat about another guy from Ajax. I can't remember the guy's name, but looking at another guy at Ajax in addition to Wijndal. Yeah, again, we need a left back. You would suggest that if the club don't sign the left back, it's gone pretty wrongly in the last week of the window. So you would hope that of some calibre we sign the left back, because Greg Taylor needs the competition, doesn't he? He needs the competition. He needs someone to come in and rotate, because if Greg Taylor's playing 60 games this season, we've got a problem.
What do you think of Owen Beck's potential for Celtic?
Yeah, I kind of mixed on it, to be honest. Like, I think there's good aspects to it, in the sense that I think he does look genuinely decent in that final third. He's got a good cross on him. He's pretty creative. He's quick. He's wide. He gets in kind of in the channels. So in that aspect, I'm up for it. I do think, in terms of like a defender, I think there would be questions marks there, and obviously we need to develop that side of his game. I think if you're wanting to really strengthen that left side, that left flank, which we look weak on defensively, I'm not sure bringing in another, attack-minded kind of player of smaller stature is the way that a lot of people want to go. But I do think he looks a decent talent, and obviously, I think he also looks like the kind of player that Brendan Rodgers would like. To be fair, so. I would see the positives in it, but I think he would be more of a work in progress, which is maybe what the club are looking for.
Feels to me like he would be more of a kind of second choice, a guy who could grow maybe under not necessarily a more experienced player, but certainly a bit of a more proven player. Like, it's a very simple thing to do with our backline at the moment and what we want, but you look at left back and you think, okay, sign an Alistair Johnston at left back, that kind of profile. And for the left centre back, sign a Cameron Carter-Vickers, because those two are so strong. If you could mirror that on the other side, I mean, with Kasper Schmeichel as well, we'd have a hell of a defence. So yeah, I'm not sold on Owen Beck, to be honest. He doesn't get me excited, but maybe I'm being a bit of a snob towards Dundee and the fact he was there last season. Maybe that's what's going on in my mind. I did watch some clips of him online because I wanted to familiarise myself with him, and he does look good going forward. He looks quick. He looks like he can drive with the ball. But I don't know. I'd maybe be looking for someone with a bit more experience at a good level.
See, I don't think I've seen enough of Dundee to know whether he's a battler or not. If he's a battler, if he's a guy who's getting stuck in, then I'd be more happy with it. Is he a battler? Because Greg Taylor's a battler, and I mean, I guess a section of the support will be. I really like Greg Taylor. Just to say that, to clarify that, but I think it's fair to say there is a section of support that might be looking for Celtic to make an outright upgrade on Greg Taylor, and I don't think Owen Beck isn't that upgrade. So it depends. Your mileage varies on whether you think it'd be a good signing or not.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I love Greg Taylor. I actually don't have a bad word really to say about Greg Taylor, but I'm still looking for Celtic to sign I think for me, maybe I do have a bad word to say about Greg Taylor, because it's maybe just that drive and that kind of power that Alistair Johnston has that Taylor doesn't really. Taylor's very good at what he does, but a lot of it's in the field. I would love a left back who could go to the line, could get back, like a Kieran Tierney or Emilio Ezagiri before him, someone with that real engine. That's not to say that Greg Taylor's not got an engine. It's a weird one, because Greg Taylor, I'm sure I've heard in the past, he's one of the quickest players in the team. He's one of the fittest guys, but his style of play is quite different to Alistair Johnston.
Yeah, it's give and take. I wonder if the main way to differentiate Greg Taylor and Alistair Johnston is I just feel like Johnston's maybe got a lot more discipline in the position. I mean, what Greg Taylor gives you is he likes to have more of a personal influence on Celtic going forward, and that could mean that he's out of the left back position fairly consistently. Now, that has worked well for Celtic over the last couple of years, and so if you take that away, then you're taking that away, but you're adding, a bit more defensive discipline, a bit more defensive steel. So it's a give and take thing. You would lose some things from if you took Greg Taylor at the team, but I do think you would add other things. So it just depends what you're looking for. And I think Owen Beck might not quite add the things that Greg Taylor lacks. Is what I might say.
Okay. Midfield wise, we've kind of covered it a little bit. I wonder if Bogusz is the Matt O'Reilly replacement, and then you're maybe looking at someone like Engels as an additional player. Is there any part of you looking at that midfield and wondering if we need two players? Because I mean, even if O'Reilly leaves, you've got Hatate, McGregor, you've got Bernardo, so you'd then be adding two to that, 5 players for 3 positions. You think that's fine?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do need 2 players there. I think even if you look before David Turnbull left, Turnbull was getting a lot of minutes in a Celtic shirt, and then he left. and that's fine. I'm not saying bring back David Turnbull. I'm not saying we should regret David Turnbull leaving the club. But he did play a fair bit. And so if you just take those minutes out of the team, who's replacing it? I think you're wanting an upgrade. So you're wanting 2 to come in. And by all the chat, Celtic are looking for 2. Whether that 2 happens, I mean, we're sitting here saying Celtic could sign a centre-back, a left-back, 2 midfielders.
No.
And as realistically as that going to happen? I really have my doubts. So
yeah,
we'll need to see what we're given. But I do think if you're looking at it and just writing things down on a bit of paper, I think 2 midfielders would be the way to go.
Yeah, but for me, absolute bare minimum stuff we absolutely need. You need a left back, because you just do, because you've only got Greg Taylor. You need a centre back, because you've only, as I say, got Carter Vickers and Scales, really, you can trust at this stage. And you need a Matt O'Reilly replacement, bare minimum. And that's even if you just say, we don't need 2 midfielders, we only need 1, and you still think that could leave us a little bit short, and that's before we even get to the kind of striker stuff. So that's 3 big positions, first team players as well for all 3 that we need done absolute bare minimum. Are there other positions as well? I mean, the left winger stuff, there was chat about the guy Balak Wisha earlier in the summer. That's gone very quiet. Are we kind of happy to be content with our wing options at the moment, or would you still really want someone in?
I think you would have to, unless you're shifting out a couple. Say, well, Mikey Johnston looks like he's leaving, but then if maybe Rodgers goes, right, we send Yang out on loan, then I think at that point you bring in another winger. I think as it stands, there's just a lot of numbers, so it's just like you're adding bodies to the squad. And is it going to happen? Do we have a move lined up for a winger going out, beyond Mikey Johnston? If we do, then you bring in another. But I could see the argument for not bringing in that. Personally, would love to see another, hot shot winger come into the club and really liven things up in a similar way that Kuhn's done over the last few weeks. That would be ideal. But that's at the stage where you're starting to get greedy from the window. And at this point, I'm wondering, going into the final week, I'm not going to be greedy. I'm just wondering if we're going to get a substantial meal of any flavour. So that's where my concern is.
The bare minimum is what we will end up settling for, given how it's gone so far. Right, okay, you can answer my question there on what we expect to actually get in the final week of the window. You did mention Mikey Johnston there. Sky Sports saying Sheffield United are in talks to sign him. It was Burnley yesterday. Sheffield United seems like the kind of more valid report. I think that's come from, as I say, Sky Sports. We're said to be open to offers for Johnston, so I think he's going to end up. He might get a few million.
Yeah, he's going to end up off the motorway somewhere down in England. That's probably going to happen. And fair play to him. I hope he does well. He's had so much stick over the years. Partly, mostly not his fault, especially the injury stuff. So it'd be good to see him go off and do something. But a few million in the bank. But what's a few million at this point to Celtic? It's they don't seem to do much with any kind of money. So a few million's not going to make much difference. I'm very cynical tonight, Hamish. I don't know if you've noticed that. I'm really hoping Celtic do some business.
You hoping to spur the board into
of course
into action?
Well, they watch every morning, don't they? You're here every morning. They're right there with you.
That's what they've been doing all summer. That's why they're not signing players. They're busy watching me. Oh well. Toby Oluwayemi's joined Dunfermline, season-long loan. Spent last season at Admira Wacker. I don't think there's any real comment there, is there?
No, I mean, do your stuff.
Fair enough. Anything else happening? Got a game this weekend.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to be a very easy game. So I'm hoping that it's the Celtic that we've seen in the first few weeks of the season. I'm hoping that it's Kuhn, and I hope Ida starts, and I hope potential O'Reilly last performance. I mean, I know you said that's looking doubtful, but unless there's a breakthrough, I think there's a good chance that he might be. Rodgers has been very strong on his mentality and how he's doing. So if they don't actually progress in talks this weekend, there's always the chance. But I think it's going to be a difficult game. How are you seeing it?
Yeah, it's always a challenge going to St Mirren. They've had a free midweek as well because they went out of Europe. So they've not made a great start to the season, but I think you've seen that with all the European teams, haven't you? And you've seen how difficult it is for teams like St Mirren and Kelly and Hearts as well, going from the Europe to the domestic stuff. So I think they'll be kind of in a weird way happy just to kick on their domestic season, and they've not really got much to lose on Sunday. You know what you get from Stephen Robinson's teams. They're very well organised, but equally they'll carry a threat going forward, and there'll be probably two big forwards giving us hell at the back. So I've always got that 2-0 defeat we had 2 seasons ago in my mind at St Mirren, but I think the last few visits there we've done really well. I think we've won our last 3 or 4 there, so we've got a good record. I think we'll be fine. I think we'll win the game, but I think it'll be the toughest challenge we've had so far this season by a fair bit. Yeah,
it could be the toughest for a wee while still. No, but it's a big week ahead, isn't it? It's an exciting week. You've got Champions League draw, you've got the end of the transfer window, you've got the derby. You need a win on Sunday just to keep things, everyone feeling good, because imagine, Sunday doesn't go well, everyone's starting the pitchforks with Kyogo halfway out the door and Matt O'Reilly in the taxi that someone's called for Kyogo.
Yeah, it'd be good to get another win and set us up for what will be a massive week. I'm already dreading how we're going to fit all of these different topics into videos next week, because we've got the Champions League draw, final week of the transfer window, we've got a derby at the end of it. It's going to be wild, I think. So we'll get you on next week to help us through that. John, thank you once again.
No problem.
For your time. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We're going for 10,000 subscribers, so if you're able to subscribe and haven't already, obviously that would be much appreciated. We'll chat to you soon.